It started like any other day, a routine traffic stop on a quiet street. But what happened next was anything but ordinary. A black man, dressed in a sharp suit, calmly handed over his license and registration, but the officer didn't seem interested in formalities. His voice dripped with suspicion, his eyes held something darker. The man behind the wheel. A lawyer, one who knew his rights and wasn't afraid to stand his ground. But when he questioned the officer's aggressive tone, things escalated fast. The cop's patience snapped, and before anyone could react, his fist flew. A hard punch. A blatant abuse of power. But what the officer never expected, the lawyer wasn't going to just take it. The moment of impact set off a chain reaction that would leave everyone speechless. Because this time, the victim had the power to fight back, legally and physically. For a brief moment, there was silence. The officer stood frozen, his fist still clenched, as if even he couldn't believe what he'd just done. But the lawyer? He barely flinched. He straightened his suit, eyes locked on the man who had just crossed the line. The people nearby had seen everything. A few pulled out their phones, recording as murmurs of disbelief spread through the crowd. The officer's expression shifted, first from anger to something else. Uncertainty. He knew he had messed up, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. "Step out of the vehicle," he barked, reaching for his handcuffs. But the lawyer wasn't afraid. He was calm, calculated. He had spent years in courtrooms exposing corruption, and now standing on this street, he saw the perfect case unfolding in real time. But what would happen next? Would justice be served, or would power win again? The lawyer took a deep breath, his heart pounding, but his face remained steady. He had handled tough cases before, but never had he been in the middle of one. The officer's hand hovered near his holster, his eyes darting toward the growing crowd. He was losing control of the situation, and he knew it. A woman in the crowd spoke up. "We saw everything. You've hit him for no reason." More voices joined in, their phones still recording. The officer's jaw tightened. He had expected compliance, maybe even fear. But instead, he was being watched, judged. The lawyer finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "I know my rights, and I know you just made the biggest mistake of your career." The officer's fingers twitched. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not like this. Sirens wailed in the distance. Backup was coming. But was it for justice, or to protect one of their own? The officer's radio crackled, but his focus stayed on the lawyer. The tension between them was thick, an unspoken battle playing out in their locked eyes. The lawyer didn't move, didn't flinch. He knew the law was on his side, but that didn't always mean justice would follow. The police sirens grew louder, flashing lights reflecting off nearby buildings. More officers were arriving, stepping out of their cars with unreadable expressions. Some looked at the lawyer, then at the crowd, assessing the situation. Others exchanged quick glances with the officer who had thrown the punch. "Sir, step away from the vehicle," one of the new officers ordered, his tone neutral but firm. The lawyer held his hands up slightly, not in surrender, but in control. "I've done nothing wrong," he said, his voice steady. "But your officer just committed assault, and I have witnesses." The first officer stiffened, his confidence wavering. He had expected backup to take his side without question. But now, with cameras rolling and the lawyer standing strong, the weight of his actions was sinking in. The next few moments would decide everything. Would the system protect him, or would this be the day everything changed? The lawyer stood his ground, waiting for someone to make the next move. The air was thick with tension, the weight of the moment pressing down on everyone. Then, just as it seemed the situation couldn't get any more unpredictable, one of the arriving officers turned to the lawyer and said, "Sir, we need you to come with us." A wave of shock rippled through the crowd. "What? He's the victim," someone shouted. The lawyer frowned, his instincts flaring. "Am I being arrested?" he asked, his voice steady but sharp. The officer hesitated, his eyes flickering toward the one who had thrown the punch. The answer was clear. Protecting one of their own, that was the priority. The lawyer knew this game all too well. Then another voice broke through. That won't be necessary. A commanding presence stepped forward, a senior officer. His uniform bore a higher rank, his eyes scanning the scene with scrutiny. "We've seen the footage," he added, nodding toward the phones still recording. The first officer's face paled. He had expected protection, but now things were shifting. The system he thought would shield him was cracking under the weight of undeniable proof. But just as it seemed justice might prevail, the lawyer's phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced down. An anonymous message popped up. Asterisk, asterisk, walk away now. August gets worse. Asterisk, asterisk. The lawyer's heart raced as he read the message. Walk away now. A chill ran down his spine. Who could have sent it? What did they know? But there was no time to dwell on it. The moment had arrived, and he couldn't back down now. He looked up at the senior officer, who was still assessing the situation. "I'm not going anywhere," the lawyer said, his voice steady. "You know what happened here, and I will take this to the highest court if I have to." The senior officer nodded slowly, clearly weighing his options. The eyes of the crowd were on him, the phones still recording every second. And in that silence, something snapped. A voice from the back of the crowd shouted, "He's not the only one who's been wronged." Suddenly, the crowd surged forward, and the lawyer's phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a message, it was a call. He hesitated for a moment before answering. "Mr. Jacobs," a calm voice said on the other end. "I know what happened today. I'm the one who sent the message. You need to listen carefully." The lawyer's blood ran cold as the voice continued. "The officer who punched you. He's part of a larger operation. If you push this, you'll uncover something much bigger than just an assault. Think twice." Before he could respond, the line went dead. The crowd was still watching, but now there was a new weight in the air. The officer who had punched him stood frozen, his face pale as he realized the full scope of what was at stake. For a moment, the lawyer felt the gravity of it all. He wasn't just fighting for justice anymore. He was stepping into a world of corruption, secrets, and power, where every choice could come with consequences he wasn't ready for. And just when it seemed like everything was about to erupt, the senior officer made his move. He took a deep breath and turned to the first officer. "You're suspended, pending investigation," he said, his voice firm. "We'll take it from here." But as the officer was led away, the lawyer knew the fight wasn't over. It had only just begun. The real story, one far darker than he had imagined, was just starting to unfold. As the officers led the suspended cop away, the crowd erupted in mixed emotions. Some cheered, others were still in disbelief. The lawyer, still reeling from the phone call and the weight of the entire ordeal, finally exhaled a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Justice had been served, but it came at a cost. He had uncovered a dangerous undercurrent of corruption, and the truth was much deeper than he could have ever imagined. In the days that followed, news outlets picked up the story, and the footage of the altercation went viral. The suspended officer was charged, but whispers of a larger investigation swirled. The lawyer became an unexpected hero, but the calls kept coming. Threats, warnings, and shadowy figures watching from the edges of the story. What started as a routine traffic stop had changed everything. And while one battle was won, the war for justice was far from over.